closing out our Super Bowl weekend here, heading into a new week. And we're getting the warm weather coming back. You can see the stratocumulus spreading northward, and we've got temperatures back up in the 70s here in Texas, and a lot of moisture too. Dew points right now around the mid-60s, and this is the weather map at this hour, starting to look a little bit like spring. And we're getting close to that springtime pattern where we're going to start seeing warm fronts developing down to the south, dry lines, and high shear days. So that's going to give us a lot to look at as we get into April and May. But we're still a little ways off from that. But let's take a look at the weather map right now. I don't know if you can see the warm front here. The best way to really pick that out is to look at the north part of the map here. You can see temperatures in the mid-50s there with low ceilings, moisture in the 40s. And then compare that down to the south along the Gulf Coast. Got temperatures around 70 and dew points near 65 and south winds. And so if you kind of narrow that down and go closer and closer in between those stations, you will pick out the front, roughly from about Shreveport, Alexandria, Louisiana, up the Red River, across DFW and towards Childress and Amarillo. So let's see if we can pin that down just a little bit better. Probably a little bit like that. So we add our warm front annotations here. And you can see the classic IFR ceilings up to the north in southeastern Oklahoma, in southern Arkansas, in fog there at Texarkana, at Shreveport, at Longview, and a pretty good temperature contrast across that front, almost 20 degrees. So if we had a little bit more instability and cooler temperatures aloft and maybe more moisture, we would have a good setup for severe weather in the Red River area. But we'll take a look at the soundings and get a look at why that's not the case today. But we also do have a bit of a dry line. Take a look out to the west in the Texas Panhandle. And there you can see dew points right around 20 to 21 there at Amarillo, and 13 at Lubbock, contrasting sharply with 66 off the Caprock. I'm not sure that that's good data. Let's scratch that off right there. But we do see 50s at Abilene, 50 here, 46. So it's kind of a weak moisture discontinuity, but you might be able to go with kind of a weak dry line kind of in this area. As we get stronger cyclonic flow in that area, that's what helps define the dry line even better. And we're going to see more of that this spring. Okay, so that's a little bit of surface analysis. Let's take a look at the large-scale patterns. There you can see the warm air down to the south. Temperatures way above normal here in Texas, and up to the north along the Canadian border, temperatures very cold. We can see a lot of polar air forming up in the Edmonton, Calgary, and Fort Nelson area. You can see how warm it's been here. This is the max temperatures for today. Lots of 70s in Texas, and we see a very strong delineation between the warm maritime tropical air to the south and the old recycled, I guess we can call it maritime polar air up to the north. And let's see, out on the west coast, looks pretty mild out there. Lots of 40s and 50s. So we're looking at pretty much a tropical air mass, modified tropical air mass in the southwest, and we don't pick up the polar air until we get up in this area right here. -8, 2 degrees there, I think that's at Cardston, and 3 to 4 at Calgary. We can take a quick look at the satellite. We haven't looked at Terra and Aqua very much at all, but this is Texas here. If I add on the coastlines and state borders, you can see that a little bit better here. And that kind of shows you the flow of tropical moisture coming off the Gulf, and it tends to develop into convection as it comes inland. And then we see a very strong difference in cloud type across where that warm front was earlier today. So we have more of a stratiform appearance here. Lots of, stratocumulus, stratus, and down to the south we have more cumuliform type clouds and maybe some cumulus from the stratocumulus from the spreading of cumulus like that. So bit of a different pattern down here, and this is where high resolution data can really help you. So you can see more of an open cell appearance here. This is around the Buffalo, Mejia, College Station area. Then as you go up north, you see a very distinct change, more of a roll type thing. These are transverse bands north of the warm front. So this is a good indicator that you have very stable air north of the warm front. It's also a good indicator that in the shallower air, like right around here, you have very strongly turning hodographs. So that would support tornado activity if you had deep convection going on. So part of your analysis job is kind of finding exactly where you are, where your warm front is between there, and so you can see tropical air right there, and to the north of that there's your stable air north of the warm front. Okay, another way to look at this, this is kind of a neat website. This is Ecology DuPage. And you can pull these up for anywhere in the country, and you can overlay Cape. I don't know if this is surface-based or mixed layer or what. But anyway, it'll help kind of show you roughly just where your instability is. And then you can overlay stuff like sea level pressure. So here we see the lee side trough up in the Amarillo area. And we can probably pin down kind of where that warm front is. It would lie right there in that trough. Theta E. This is kind of a combination of temperature and moisture. And it shows where your lifted parcel, when it becomes saturated, is going to be furthest over to the right on the chart. So the air masses down here, these are going to be more favorable of strongly buoyant parcels. Of course, the problem is, as you go south, you get more into capped air. So convective inhibition, that'll help you find your cap to a certain extent. Theta, this is your potential temperature. You can use this in mountainous areas to kind of remove the effects of elevation. And you can see the warm front would fall right in this area here. So there's your thermal gradient. Front is going to be on the warm side of that gradient. Let me look over on the chat window, make sure my mic isn't off. Okay. All right, I was just scanning text to make sure no audio. That's always a nightmare when that happens. All right, then we can throw on the station plots here. And this is where earlier in the day you can kind of see the change in the wind direction across that front there. Southeast winds north of the front and south-southwest winds south of there. Then a quick look at wind gusts. That's pretty neat. 20, 22, 23 knots there around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, concentrated there on the I-35 corridor. Okay. So anyway, we'll probably start using some of that as we get more into the spring. 500 millibar analysis shows us mostly under the influence of zonal flow across the U.S. Still have northwesterly flow up to the north, still have the blocking pattern. There's that omega block right there. So that's keeping us locked in this pattern, but this deep troughing is kind of keeping us cut off from the colder air up to the north as we start out this week. But this trough here, this is going to be where we're going to see a disturbance moving southeastward during the start of this week and into the Great Lakes area in a couple of days. And there's a quick look at the satellite imagery. You can see a storm system out over the western U.S. right here. So we're going to look for activity out in that region. Also more of that going on out here in the Pacific Northwest. And then we see a very distinct boundary on the north side of that cirrus shield, so that's going to indicate probably where a jet stream is. And yeah, there's the jet stream right there. So our cirrus shield was kind of going like this. And then further out in Arizona and Utah, where we saw that other cloud shield, doesn't look very baroclinic. We see 55 knots there at San Diego, but only about 30 or 40 knots around here. So this may be more of an upper level wave moving through the circulation, maybe not much going on at the surface. The stronger upper level winds are up here. So this is where we're going to look for a subtropical jet. Here's our NAM isobars and thickness. So first glance shows the tighter packing across the eastern U.S. and the northern tier states, and up into the Washington, Seattle, Portland area right there. So we're going to look for fronts kind of in this area here. So we follow that through, and we can probably connect that back to our other front on the plains, maybe something like this. And then offshore, I think we're probably looking at maybe something like that. Okay, so jet's going to be directly north of that right there. And then a lot of this is probably going to be associated with a subtropical jet. And then system offshore, that's very easy. So it's going to look like that up into the Canadian Maritimes. And so we're seeing the main system of interest up in Seattle and Portland. And we can see the cold air advection coming out into the Pacific right here. And that's going to be moving onshore over the next couple of days here. And let's take a look at the soundings and see what Fort Worth has. This was Fort Worth a few hours ago, and we know that they're coming into the tropical air mass, and we see the southeast winds right there, 10 to 20 knots. Not much of a low-level jet here. And we see the upper-level temperatures kind of descend into this 20 to 30 degree ballpark. So this is definitely wintertime tropical air. There's a little bit of that stratocumulus right there. That's just going to be from basic convection of moist air coming off the Gulf. And of course that's going to be capped off pretty well up here. There's your convective inhibition. And above that, some cirrus up at about 25,000 moving through that flow. But north of that warm front there in Springfield, don't see much of a frontal inversion here. Maybe a very weak one. Not seeing that at all. Let's check out Little Rock, see if that shows up. Yeah, Little Rock is definitely showing that a little bit better. So you see how both the moisture and temperature line, they go up and then to the right. So that's going to be the frontal inversion right there. So that's going to top out right here, and that's going to show that the top of the cold front air mass is at about 5,000 feet. Then we'll take a quick look at the dynamics and see what's going on. This evening, this is the presentation here. You can see a couple waves moving through the California area right there. So that's going to be responsible for a lot of the clouds, high clouds across Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. And here's our main wave off the Washington coast coming inland. And both of these systems right now are contending with this ridge over the northern Rockies right there. So over the next few days, we're going to see, well, over the next day, we're going to see that main wave moving into Oklahoma and Kansas. So that's going to be midday tomorrow. So maybe a little chance of showers in there, depending on how much moisture makes it up north. And looks like we get scrape here in Texas. See that right there? That's coming through tomorrow evening, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, and we may have some showers to look at on tomorrow's webcast. Then we have this other system coming into the Great Lakes area on Tuesday, and we see most of the dynamics are working on Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior, so right there in that area. But ridge upstream, northwesterly flow aloft, bringing in some cold air. So those are the main factors right there. Maybe a couple waves coming in behind. Kind of a channeled appearance. And a big ridge moves inland. So looks like some fair weather through much of next week. Then our next wave comes in through California on Friday and Saturday. There it is right there. And that looks like it's heading into the southern plains. Or maybe not. Looks like maybe that shears off and model's going for a cutoff low in the Los Angeles area. So that's going to mean more rain for that area. And I'm sure they're looking forward to that. So that's going to be February 13th on Monday. So model's got that hanging around, and it's interesting. These cutoff lows that they tend to be very common in the early spring, and the models have historically had a very difficult time forecasting those. If you saw this on the LFM models, your forecast for Texas and the southern U.S. would pretty much be out to lunch for about a week or two. But the GFS is, for whatever reason, they're doing a better job with these cutoff lows here. And part of that is because they tend to be barotropic systems, and those are the structure is a little bit simpler, but they're a little bit more difficult to model. So that's going to eject out into Texas on February 18th, ChaserCon weekend, and things still look okay for Colorado for that weekend, at least until the start of that week. Large trough off the west coast there. Okay, let me take a look at chat before I head into the forecast. Yeah, people coming in from the game. There's Mike and Lexi and Ron there. Ron and Mike talking about the game, and Sarah there also. Sue M checking in. Mike Eastwick talking about the zonal flow with a little Chinook action yesterday there, and we just have some southerly flow there. Mike Eastwick says College DuPage uses surface-based CAPE on those overlays. Okay, that's definitely good to know. Surface-based CAPE is going to be more important on your days where you have very strong heating, and a little bit less so where you're dealing with fronts and elevated layers. Okay, there's Fred and ACC Dude 92. That's a new name there. Mike Estwick says Colorado Denver looking okay for ChaserCon. Cutoff low, a weatherman's whoa, Southern California, yeah. All right. Well, are we ready to head into the forecast? Let's do that. Okay, so starting out on this panel, we can see the GFS has got that warm front across North Texas right here. So we're starting out okay with this model. Looks good. So north of that, we got the higher pressure and the denser air up to the north. There's our lee side trough on the Colorado prairies down into the South Plains of Texas. So going into our webcast for Monday, not looking really at anything here in Texas. Remember, we were looking at that shortwave moving across Texas. We will have to keep that in the back of our minds in case something does develop. It's possible one of the other models may be showing something, but I think we were looking at that coming through this area right here. We're probably very well capped as part of the problem right there. But we see the thickness. The zone is very packed in this area here. So it looks like our front is trying to make its way through Nevada and California into the Yellowstone area. For Tuesday's webcast, looks like that's crossing the Rocky Mountains. Actually, hang on, let me back that up and yeah, that system moved pretty quickly across the plains, actually. Looks like it's already on its way across. Yeah, see, by Tuesday, we've already got the system out over Iowa here. That kind of threw me because I didn't really see much of a signature on Monday, except this very vague, large area of falling pressures on the lee side of the Rockies. So this is the main system coming together for the Great Lakes. We've been watching this for several days now. And there it goes into the Chicago area on Tuesday morning. So I think for the front, we're probably looking at something like that, perhaps. Definite warm front like that. So that puts Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois in the showery area right there. Cold air is still pretty far up to the north here. More weather coming into California and Nevada. So we're going to see that system moving across the Rockies on Wednesday. And then we see a pretty good developed low over Texas on Wednesday. Let's draw that out real quick. There's the tail end of the Great Lakes system. And then we see this area of thickness right here. So we've probably got the front somewhat well to the south. So I'm probably going to go with something like that, perhaps. Maybe even something like that right there. So let's see what happens with that. Looks like a little bit of frontalysis through this area. It looks like it kind of shifts northward a little bit. And we've got that over Montana on Thursday. Let me draw that up real quick. Okay, so we're redeveloping up in the Oregon and Washington area for Thursday. And then we've got the high pressure from Canada shifting through the Midwest. But already, warm air advection on the plains on Thursday. Okay, so then for Friday and Saturday, we can see the baroclinic area start shifting back again to the southeast into the southern Rockies. So frontal system probably looking kind of like this for Saturday. Kind of a dry system here in Texas. And kind of evolves into the stationary feature here on Saturday and Sunday. There comes high pressure southward, cold air advection into Missouri and Oklahoma. And then that finally pushes southward through Texas, a little bit of isentropic lift across that area and into the Las Cruces, El Paso area for Monday. Driven by this large high pressure area, big ridge. And of course, north of that ridge, we're going to see a lot of cold air moving southeastward through the northern plains. Looks pretty quiet for mid-month, 16th, 17th. And then towards Saturday and Sunday, 18th, this is where we see the Pacific system starting to move inland. And something else moving through Texas also. So this is about 300 hours out, and that's probably about all I'll do with that GFS there. Okay, so I think that's about all I got for today, and appreciate you joining us on this late webcast. We'll see you tomorrow, and have a good rest of the weekend. Thanks.
Customer orders a single with cheese. Here's the way you do it if you wanna please. Lay down the cheese in a juicy spot, but don't leave it too long or it'll get too hot. Scoot it up, lay it off on the meat. Do it right, keep it neat. Drain and circle the bun just so. Don't touch it with your finger.
Sorry about that, guys. We had yesterday's novelty Wendy's reel mixed in there, and I forgot to change out the file. Anyway, have a good evening, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.